Okay, good evening. Welcome to this meeting of Development and Management Committee. I'll just go through the preliminaries first and then we'll get started. I have to read this out anyway. The meeting this evening will be live streamed meeting to the public. A recording of the public part of the meeting will be available on the council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. And I don't think I need to read the other bits. No. And I'll go emergency evacuation procedure. From the council chambers, turn left, follow the green emergency exit signs to the main town hall entrance and proceed to the assembly point at St George's Square. And I'll go through any apologies for absence tonight.
Yes, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Frood and Alia Khan.
Okay. Minutes of the 20th of March. Sorry.
Apologies also from Councillor Franks.
Okay. Noted. Minutes of the 20th of March 2024. Are you okay with those? And I'll sign them in due course. Section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act.
None that I'm aware of, Chair.
Any disclosure of interest this evening? Either call them out now or when the item is called. Councillor Bridgen.
The usual, Chair, in relation to item 8, I'll declare a personal and prejudicial interest as I'm a season card holder at Luton Town Football Club.
Have you renewed your ticket for next year yet?
The renewals, I think, are available from the 1st of June onwards. So not yet, but I have every intention of doing so.
You're still declaring interest, although your season ticket has expired. Okay, that's fair enough. That'll be recorded. Any other declarations of interest tonight? Urgent business?
None,
Not
Chair.
aware of any. So we'll go on to the agenda proper. I intend to take a few items out of order because there have been requests to speak. So I'll deal with the first item. That's agenda item 14, 7 North Street. And we've got two speakers, Michaela Williams and Naseem Khan. You're here? Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll let you know when you're speaking. Okay. So we'll go on to 7 North Street. Page 20, no, find it here. 236.
Good evening, Chair. This is an application for 7 North Street. It's a site that's located on the corner on northeastern side of North Street near the junction with Old Bedford Road. It's currently a 3-story building which has recently been built. The surrounding area is predominantly residential in character with a mixture of single-family dwellings and flats. The site is bounded by the church to the west and residential to the east, south and north. The current application is seeking planning permission for the erection of an additional story to provide 3 flats, 2 2-bedrooms and one bed flat. Do you want to just go through the slides? So this is the proposed front and rear elevations showing the additional story. This is showing the side elevations facing Elgar Path and the church. This is like the aerial view of the additional story viewed from North Street. And this is like a CGI image of what the additional story will look like. In terms of the principle of the development as set out in the report, the principle of additional flats on the site is considered acceptable as it complies with the objectives of policy LLP 15 in terms of providing family housing and not resulting in an over-intensive form of development. With regards to the impact on the character of the area, North Street consists of a mixture of single-story family dwellings and flats of mixture of family dwellings and flats of varying height, scale and design, which provide diversity in the built form in the area. The site is surrounded by 2 and 3-story houses and 3 to 4-story flatted development. The current proposal is seeking an additional story, making the existing building a 4-story in height. Whilst this would add to the massing of the building, owing to the fact that the additional story will be stepped in from the edge of the main building over 2 meters from the front elevation, means that it would be a subservient and would not dominate the appearance of the original building from the street scene. In addition, the materials proposed will be in the form of light cladding, which will further reduce the massing and visual impact of the development. Based on the siting and finish of the additional story and the diversity in terms of the height and scale of the built form in the area, The proposed development is not considered to have a detrimental impact on the character and appearance of the surrounding area. In relation to the effect on the amenities of the adjoining occupiers, as set out in paragraph 26 to 23 of the report, the properties that would be mainly affected would be the properties numbers 2 to 8 Elgar Path to the east. A number of residents from these properties have objected to the proposal on the grounds that it would lead to a further loss of light outlook and overlooking and loss of privacy. Whilst these concerns are noted as set out in the report, owing to the siting of the proposed additional floor set in between 1.72 meters from the edge of the main building, means that the development would be located further away than the existing development, increasing the spatial distance between the site and these properties, and thereby helping to limit both the impact in terms of loss of light and outlook from these properties. In relation to the issue of overlooking and loss of privacy, as set out in the report, majority of the windows in the elevation facing these properties would be either ancillary windows or serving non-habitable parts of the flats, and would be conditioned to be obscured glazed to limit any direct overlooking. The only habitable window is the lounge window, which, owing to its siting and the parapet wall detailing, would have limited impact in terms of any direct overlooking. On the basis of this, the proposed development is not considered to materially harm the visual amenities of the adjoining occupiers. With regard to the living environment created for future occupiers, as set out in paragraph 34 to 38 of the report, the overall living environment created for future occupiers of the additional flats is considered acceptable. In relation to transport and parking, the site currently has no off-street parking provision. The proposed scheme would also provide no parking, which has raised concerns from local residents in terms of increased demand for on-street parking in the area. However, owing to the sustainable location of the site within walking distance of the train and bus station and the town centre, it would be difficult to sustain a refusal based on parking. Furthermore, the local highway authority also do not consider the development to raise any major highway or parking implications. The proposal is therefore not considered to raise any parking or highway implications. To conclude, based on the foregoing, the proposal is not considered to have a harmful effect on the character or appearance of the surrounding area or the amenities of the adjoining occupiers. On that basis, a conditional approval is recommended. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Nyla. Any specific questions by members? Okay, then I'll ask the objectors to come forward, please. There's a microphone on the left-hand side. Just there. Somebody else is online. We'll just check.
Subjects essential to know for life word.
So they're there yet? Yep. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. The rules are you've got up to 5 minutes. That's 2.5 minutes each. Or you can opt for one person to talk or get the full 5 minutes. So it's up to you. Do you want to start?
Okay, I'll start and Azim can add in.
Okay, so, and I'll remind you when your time's nearly up.
Okay, so firstly, I'd like to oppose the structure of the third floor being built. In previously submitted plans, there were pictures showing that the light distribution to the flats being built was reduced. These images that were previously shown, we strongly disputed. And now we have to turn our lights on during the day in like the winter time, significantly earlier September, October, because the light is reduced. If we put this third floor onto the top of what we already have, although they've said that there will be some impact, but it's further back, so there won't be a lot of impact, there is still some impact to us. We've already got reduced vision from our garden. How does this not reduce it even more? We'd like to see like a light. They said that they'd done a light review before. What is the new light review to show us that it's not as impactful as they're trying to say that it would be? A second objection is the visual obstruction. So They're saying that that there's no visual obstruction to us because it's further back and the view's cladding. We live here and we have to walk past this building every single day. We can see it from our bedrooms, we can see it from our living room, we can see it from our kitchen. There is still a visual obstruction to us. It surpasses the height of the church that we had, which was further away from where we lived to before. In previous pictures, there was trees put up that said that there'd be no impact to us. These trees haven't been displayed in the building now that it's here. We are fully obstructed from this building in a garden that we were able to sit in before and have some form of privacy. Our living room windows, we have no privacy. They said that they would put in windows that were blurred out so we wouldn't be like directly impacted. This hasn't happened. All we do is now we see people when we're cooking our food staring at us. My 10-year-old daughter in her bedroom has people who are watching her in her bedroom. She was able to live comfortably before this and not have to worry. And it's not just only us that's impacted, it's all of our neighbours. Like we've got no privacy anymore because of the flat space that's already there. We have people overlooking us all the time. With this additional floor, that's 3 different flats now being able to look at us even more. It's an invasion of our privacy. It's an invasion of us being able to live peacefully and comfortably in a home that people have worked for or made comfortable for their whole entire lives. And the developers talked about ancillary windows or serving non-habitable parts of the development, like so that's to limit direct overlooking. This still doesn't work. Like we are still impacted and people can still see inside our homes. Furthermore, when we was researching the houses to see how much the prices were that they were selling for and what they look like inside. And even on a picture on a retailer's website, you can see inside my living room. Should that even be possible or be allowed? If you can see inside mine, for one, it's a clear, direct view of what the other houses on our side are experiencing as well. They can see through all of our houses. So this flat on top.
Okay, can I ask you to wind up, please?
Okay, yeah, we can wind up. So I will wind up by saying, for you guys, this is an extra 3 homes. But for us, we're a community whose families have worked incredibly hard to make our homes homely, purchase them and create an enjoyable environment. We have a developer who's not looking at anything other than an opportunity to line his pockets. We aren't multimillionaires. We don't have various property developments like him, but we should be given some consideration. We were here first. He's noting his lack of profit due to rising costs. We have
thank you
as well, and he charges £1,400 a month to rent out a property. That's more than enough to line his pockets. There are people who don't make that a month.
Yes.
So
thank you. Can I ask you to stop now, please?
Yeah, but while we lose our money, he makes money.
Can I ask you to?
It's not right. Okay.
I understand. I understand. I'll ask you to stop now and let your colleague, your neighbour in. Okay.
That's the way the houses were built. But to lose it from the back as well is just unacceptable. Be sold, hence the green selling point. But none of these flats have been sold. They're all rented out, so they cannot actually control who is buying them and moving into a building that's supposed to be green that has no parking spaces? It has caused a real issue for the rest of the residents because there are people in those flats with cars and they are parking where the rest of the residents are trying to park. So it's caused a major issue there. I'll also highlight about the estate agent where it has an advert where it actually shows one window looking straight into another. I'd like to highlight that in the construction report, he mentions lack of profit, which I am flabbergasted about, because if we cannot be considered for losing value of our properties, which I understand if that's the policy, why should the contractor be allowed to talk about his value and profits when we are not? It just seems like a double standard. The flats nearby are not a direct comparison. They may be the same height, but they don't overlook any gardens, cause any shading, or cause any obstructions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions by members to the objectors? No? Just issues that were raised. This wind turbine. Do you know anything about the wind? I can't see it in any of the plans.
No, they were originally going to, as part of the climate change, they were going to originally put some wind turbines, but that's not going to happen now. We're going to have solar panels instead. So the revised plans do show solar panels, which are going to be dealt by way of a condition.
Yeah.
So there won't be any wind turbines on there.
No, is this most of the objections are due to the building that's already there?
Yeah.
And the only consideration for us tonight is the additional 3 flats on top.
Yeah.
And that's all we can consider.
Yeah.
Okay. Any sorry, Lee.
By the objectors. Would now be a good time to ask or yeah? Okay, thanks, Chair. So one of the objectors mentioned about a condition to plant trees to shield, to mask the with the.
This is the few additional floor. All the amenity area, everything will be still related to, so I can go back and have a look and see whether there was a condition.
Check that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Enforcement action. Yeah. Oh, sorry. And then the other one was in relation to concerns raised in relation to the light assessment. So my question is, are there sort of guidelines on methodology for assessment of light impacts, and basically have they been complied with this assessment?
They did a BRA assessment for the original building, which found that the impact in terms of loss of light was negligible. Obviously, this is going further away. So by that very reason, it would have less of an impact. If the existing building met all the standards, this is going to be set further away. So that's set out in the report as well.
Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Chair. Another point, what one of the objectors raised was that the fact that there was supposed to be obscure glass in some of the windows, and but they've been fitted with plain glass, and people can look out, and this is causing them embarrassment, the neighbours embarrassment. If this is true, should we get enforcement to go round and double check this? Because if they have broken their original agreement, they should be made to replace plain glass with obscure glass.
Yeah, that's if it was a condition on the previous application. I'm not sure if you know that, Nyla.
We'll check that and see whether we need to get enforcement out to go and have a look.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if the developers here, are they? No. Any further questions? Yeah, Francis.
Thank you. Yeah. In the original application, was an application made for 4 stories, and was that negotiated between the developer and the planning officers? And if so, would that have any planning implications at all?
The original application, so I'm not sure whether it did come as a 4-story or whether it was a 3-story development originally.
And would it have any planning implications if? Okay. You shake your head.
Only really deal with the application that's before us, and that's the additional 3 flats on top. Because what's gone is unfortunately it's gone. What was your question, Francis? You asked a question.
Sorry, that was a question whether the previous application might have any implications for this. If it was negotiated from, say, 4-storey to 3-storey.
I don't know.
But we don't know, do we?
We don't know.
But I think the head of housing's saying in any case that wouldn't have any implication.
Through you, Chair.
Yeah.
Sunny Sahadavan, Head of Planning. Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor. And you are correct that in your summation that the previous potential iterations doesn't have any impact on the consideration of the proposals before you. The current proposals, which does include an additional storey, has been assessed independently of any previous iterations and found by officers to be acceptable.
Any further questions? Any comments? There being no comments, then I'll move to the recommendation, which is for approval. And it only refers to the 3 flats additional on top of the roof. Okay. I'll move approval. Is that seconded? Okay, we'll take the vote then. Matt, ready?
Yeah. Just the conservative side.
Yeah.
Can't take part in.
Yeah. Let him know then.
Right. Stephen Sparshot, Plan Solicitor. Councillor Adjazado, because you probably know this, but because you didn't hear the entire item, you're unable to actually vote on this item, okay? Thanks.
Matt?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Ambia? Councillor Bridgen?
Abstain.
Councillor Haniff? Lamid?
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Raja?
For.
Councillor Steer? 4. Sorry. 4.
Sorry, 4.
Councillor Taylor?
4.
That's 4 for, 2 against and 1 abstention. So the application has been granted. Thank you very much. Next one, it will be Power Court. We have the applicant speak, Michael Moran. That's over you, David.
Thank you, Chair. I could have the first slide, please. The planning application seeks permission for the undertaking of engineering works to move earth and create a development platform at Power Court, including access and associated works. There is an update on this item, which has been provided in the update sheet. This application has been brought to committee as it is a major planning application. Slide 1 shows the application site. It's located in Luton Town Centre's northeast gateway, bounded to the north by the route of the Luton Dunstable guided busway and to the south by St Mary's Road. To the east is Church Road and to the west Crawley Green Road. Members will be aware that the application site benefits from the grant of planning permission under reference 16.01400, which included commercial and residential development in the stadium, and also a subsequent grant of planning permission under reference 20.01587 for the residential and commercial elements of the redevelopment, but excluding the stadium. If we could go to the next slide, please. From this slide, members will see the extent of the site. The groundworks will result in a a final finish level of 105.12 above ordnance datum. To achieve this, there needs to be undertaken cut and fill on the site. The colours denote the levels on the site. The orange and pink areas, which are the areas at the top of the site, represent those areas where there is a need for material to be cut from the site. The areas in green where an element of fill is required. The extent of material to be cut is 54,250 cubic metres. The extent of the fill is 19,420 cubic metres. This means that 34,830 cubic metres will have to be moved from the site. If I could have the next slide, please. This slide shows the section AB, which is from Church Street to Crawley Green Road. This indicates the variation in level and the final and level required. The undulated broken line is the existing levels and the green line is the finished level. If I could have the next slide, please. This is section CD, which is St Mary's Road to the busway. There is less work required in this section of the site, but nevertheless, there is undulation, which is again demonstrated by the broken red line and the solid green line, which is the finished level. If I could have the next slide, please. This slide indicates the access arrangements and the site compound. The main access and exit is from Crawley Green Road, with Church Road also providing access and exit from the site. The existing access road within the site will be maintained. Members will see from the report that the main planning considerations are set out in paragraph 24. As identified, Power Court has significant ground level changes across the site, particularly to the northeast. The proposal would utilise existing earth on the site and move sufficient material to facilitate a constant level of 105.12 metres AOD throughout the application site. The proposed movement of earth is considered to be a sustainable way to utilise existing fill to create a development platform. The proposal is considered to be acceptable in principle as it would facilitate the delivery of the strategic site allocation within the terms of the extent planning permissions in accordance with policy LLP 9. The matter of highway considerations is paramount in the consideration of the application. The materials to be removed from the site and the consequent highway implications are set out in paragraphs 31 to 37 of the report. The Highway Development Manager has not raised any concerns in respect of traffic movements, but has requested a traffic management plan. A condition has been recommended in this respect. It should also be noted that the transport assessment that was prepared to assess and support the outline planning application for the stadium estimated that the anticipated traffic generations during construction at the site is on average 24 one-way vehicle trips per day. Therefore, the 21 loads or 21 one-way vehicle trips per day proposed sits within this estimate for the approved stadium. It should also be noted that the proposals would result in the cessation of the short-term car parking and the crushing of the localised material plant for which this site is currently used. It is concluded that the proposed vehicle trips arising from the earthworks proposed as part of this application would sit within the range previously forecast for construction activities as part of the outline consent. Additionally, trip generation of the current use of the site is significantly in excess of the trips forecast by the earthwork activities. The proposed development is therefore consistent with policy LLP 31 of the adopted Luton Local Plan. The Council's environmental protection team have been consulted in the matter of noise and air quality and are satisfied that the construction phase plan method statement provides safeguarding controls. The proposal is not therefore in conflict with policy LLP 38. In terms of ecology, no adverse impacts are anticipated since the works proposed are enabling works for the redevelopment of the Power Court site in accordance with the extant planning permission. To this extent, the proposed development is consistent with policy LLP 28. The site is adjacent to St Mary's Church, a Grade 1 listed building and adjacent to the Platers Lee Conservation Area. There is no objection from either Beams or Historic England. The effect of the current application upon the significance of nearby designated heritage assets is considered acceptable and no additional mitigation measures are necessary. As such, the proposal accords with policy LLP1 and LLP30 in the local plan, as well as the policies in the NPPF. The matter of archaeology has also been the subject of discussion between the applicant and the council's archaeological advisor, and subject to condition, there is no objection. As such, the proposal accords with policy LLP1 and LLP30 in the local plan, as well as the NPPF. There are no objections subject to conditions on flooding and drainage. Accordingly, policy LLP36 will not be compromised. Insofar as contamination is concerned, there are no objections from the Environment Agency, and policy LP38 is not compromised. In terms of the impact of the proposed development on adjoining neighbours, the dwellings in Crawley Green Road and at Melson's Court are the closest residential property to the site. But with the relevant mitigation measures, it is considered that these earthworks can be undertaken without adversely affecting residential amenity. In conclusion, the scheme is considered to be acceptable in principle, supporting the development of this strategic allocation site and leading to the delivery of the stadium and the surrounding development. With suitable mitigation measures, it would not adversely affect transport, compromise environmental considerations, ecology, heritage, archaeology, etc. The development would therefore be in accordance with the policies of Luton Local Plan. On this basis, approval is recommended.
Thank you, David. We've got Michael Moran. You want to come forward and convince us that this is necessary? Rules. You've got up to 5 minutes to speak up.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Michael Moran, Chief Operating Officer of 2020 Developments. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm here today to talk in relation to the application now for the undertaking of engineering works to move earth and create a development platform for our new stadium at Power Court. I'm delighted to see this recommended by officers for approval, subject to the planning conditions in the report. The proposals represent a really important step to move us forward. So as well as the stadium, ultimately the site for housing, commercial and community uses, as many of you will be familiar with from our planning committee sessions in 2019 and 2022. The proposals will enable groundworks to commence ahead of bringing forward the sustainable development of a key strategic town site. The detailed stadium proposals will come forward in the coming months. The current application involves cut and fill works, transferring earth from essentially one side of the site to the other. I really want to make clear that the numbers put forward are the maximum numbers that we'd be considering. We've spent the intervening months very much investigating as much of the site as possible with boreholes and trenching. So we're very hopeful that we'll be able to reduce those numbers significantly. The application is supported by a full suite of technical documentation, as of course you'd expect, to address matters in relation to transport, archaeology, noise, contamination and ecology. With regards to transport, the number of vehicle movements, as stated, is within the range of the current operation of the site. And as I said, we intend to work, well, we're working 24/7 to reduce those to within the headline numbers put forward today. All works on site will be carefully managed and controlled by our local contractors, who will appropriately manage the on-site activity in accordance with the construction phasing plan and method statement. Details, scope of the works to be undertaken, how matters such as transport, noise, dust and vibration will be monitored and managed. The duration of the works will be approximately 40 weeks, and the contractors are ready to start as soon as planning permission has been granted. The groundworks will be a temporary transitional phase for this site, hopefully then ensuing the timely delivery of the stadium for Luton Town Football Club. We hope members can support the current application. Thank you for your time this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll open it up to questions by members. At the time, did you say 40 weeks? Did I roughly 40 weeks?
This schedule of works is approximately 40 weeks.
Yeah, okay. And then later on would be the application for the stadium.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay,
40.
40 weeks. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah, Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Chair. Does the River Lee run through this site?
The River Lee, yes.
Many years ago, when it was being first mooted of developing this site, one of the environmental agencies was insisting that the Lee be opened up 2 meters either side of it, be kept clear for nature to take its course. What has happened to the River Lee in this scheme?
The River Lee is front and centre of all our plans for the site and the stadium. Nothing has changed in that regard. So this application specifically for earthworks to prepare the site. There's a separate application in the system for the River Lee. I'm delighted to say that application is effectively to open up the entirety of the River Lee on the western half of the site. And then we'll then culvert the River Lee around the bottom of the stadium and then open it up in the eastern end. So the net effect will be to open up more of the River Lee than we've got now. And we're respecting the Environment Agency's desire to have an open and accessible River Lee where it's open. And we're using the council's own Silver Street scheme as a starting point from what we'll work on. So the plans for the River Lee are not denigrated in any way.
Could I just add to that, Chair?
Yeah.
We, as Michael said, we do have an application in to divert the River Lee because the culverting arrangement in the middle of the site is quite precarious. And also it provides an opportunity, as has been said, to open up the River Lee and take advantage of its presence.
No further questions? Thank you very much. Any further questions by members to the planning officer? Abatunde.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. It's mentioned in the report that some reports can be made available in the meeting if there's an objection or any other observation by, I think, which agency again? Network Rail and some others. Is there any report from them? I'll start again. In the report, page 69, it says any comment received will be reported at the meeting. I think there's 1 or 2 more like that. Cadent Gas, I think. That should be page 69 at the bottom. Beams, Historic England, Network Rail. Can you see that on page 69? There's no number, it's bulleted.
Is essentially the extent of the responses. But what we are trying to do with this application is to remove the need for pre-commencement conditions. And so there are, for example, the archaeology reference, which I made. There is now agreement to the document that's been submitted, as well as with the Environment Agency. And those 2 reports are included as part of the conditions. So we're moving towards removing the need for the conditions, so the development can commence as a matter of urgency to allow the stadium to come forward in the ultimate.
No report from the Network Rails.
Sorry, from
Network Rails.
No, there's nothing from
No,
Network Rail. No.
Okay. Any further questions? Any comments? Yeah, Jakob.
Yeah, it's good to see that finally that something's happening, because, as it says in the report, that these groundworks are essential for the next phase in terms of the stadium development. And I appreciate your putting comments because of the size of the project. That's why it's had to come to committee. But within that, I have a question. So are there no potential further comments or objections or obstacles put in our way by the environmental agency? Because I know reference has been made to the River Lee, and also are there any legacy impacts from the power station that used to be there in terms of, the viability of the land being developed on? Because obviously there was a power station there once upon a time.
There is a timescale set for each of the consultation responses to be received. Where there are no responses received, in the event that between that date and this meeting, anything comes forward, then we would report it. But what you see in the consultation responses is the extent of what we have received. In terms of the Environment Agency, the Environment Agency's response usually comes in phases. It usually starts off with an objection requiring more information, but then as a consequence of discussion between officers, the applicant, and the Environment Agency, we get to a position which we've got to on this one, whereby the documentation that's been submitted and which is included within the report, which is included within the documentation referred to in the condition, negates the need for any pre-commencement condition. So where there are consultation responses received, there is usually, and most usually, discussion if points arise which need to be resolved, assuming they can be resolved. Sometimes they can't be, but the majority of situations are that they can be resolved, and that's what we do with the consultation responses.
Okay. Any comments? For no comments, then I'll move the recommendation is to approve. Is that seconded? Yeah, we'll go to the vote now, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Ajisola.
For.
Councillor Ambia. For. Not Councillor Bridgen. Councillor Haniff. For. Thank you. Lamid.
For.
Councillor Raja.
For.
Councillor Steer.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
It's carried, Chair.
So that's unanimous. That's carried. So permission has been granted for the earthworks, which is a small step towards the eventual stadium, which hopefully will come before us fairly soon. Thank you very much. One while Councillor Bridgen comes back. Here's the Bute Street Shoppers Car Park, which I think is the stage, which is page 71. Yeah.
Infrastructure funding report is the last item.
Yeah.
We've got the consultant ready, but I just thought
Planning by the hour.
I'll message with about 20 minutes to go.
Yeah. Right, Roy, Ellen, it's over to you.
Good evening, Chair. This application is regarding Bute Street Shoppers Car Park, a development also known as The Stage, and is subject of an update report with minor amendments and consultee updates, including Natural England withdrawing their objection. A site notice was displayed, press notice published, and 265 neighbours were notified. No objections have been received to date. I should emphasise that in determining this application, the local planning authority has a statutory duty under sections 66 and 72 of the Planning, Listed Buildings and Conservation Areas Act 1990 to have special regard to the desirability of preserving or enhancing the character or appearance of listed buildings and conservation areas. Where harm arises from a proposed development, this must be given substantial weight before going on to balance against the NPPF and local plan policies. The site comprises a 1.5 hectare plot of land between Station Road, Bute Street, Church Road, and a key pedestrian route linking the railway station to the town centre. Next slide, please. There is a 4-metre level change from the north to south. The application site was formerly the Bute Street railway station and sidings, which was replaced by a multi-storey car park and bus station that has since been demolished. More recently, the site has been used as a surface level car park. The application is, next slide please, sorry. The application is for 2 9 to 10 storey residential blocks providing 292 homes, and a 2 to 5 storey mixed-use building, including office space, performance venue and food court, which the community would have access to. The proposals also include a new public square, a new pedestrian route from Bute Street to Church Street, private residential communal gardens and car parking for the mixed-use building only. Regarding sustainable design, the proposal meets and exceeds some of the requirements of LLP 37 and the Town Centre Design Guide SPD. Despite being a requirement within Policy LLP 25 and best practice for significant major schemes, the applicant did not engage with the independent design review panel process, which provides industry expertise and guidance, often leading to higher quality outcomes. There has, however, been an extensive pre-app process since November 2022 under a planning performance agreement, which has enabled early discussions with officers around design and technical aspects of the scheme prior to the application put before committee today. The site forms part of the Station Gateway site allocation under Policy LLP 11 that supports residential-led mixed-use development as part of wider town centre regeneration. It should also be led by railway station improvements, however, these have not come forward from Network Rail. The loss of 252 car parking spaces, public car parking spaces, is allowed for under Policy LLP 32, which seeks to support sustainable transport and regeneration in the town centre while ensuring that sufficient parking remains. Therefore, the principle of development is acceptable. Next slide, please. In terms of site layout, the proposal broadly follows the indicative high-level layout shown within the town centre master plan framework. Next slide, please. Which locates the public square and mixed-use building facing the station and route to the town centre, and then the residential blocks shown in orange and yellow, facing onto the future Power Court and 2 to 12 Guildford Street schemes. Officers did encourage the applicant to consider how the block layout could better reflect the urban grain and street pattern of adjacent Plattersley Conservation Area, which would frame views, create logical routes across the site, and enhance high-quality placemaking. Next slide, please. Furthermore, the Town Centre Design Guide SPD specifically supports cross-block pathways to encourage walkability and a sense of safety. The proposal we see today, however, maintains a layout that limits pedestrian permeability between the blocks. Some improvements have been made to the elevations along Station Road to better highlight the residential entrances. And also greater visual permeability is encouraged through boundary treatment design that will come via planning condition. Next slide, please. In terms of massing, the Town Centre Design Guide SPD supports mid-rise development in the town centre, which is considered to be 6 to 10 storeys, and the courtyard block typology shown very small to the bottom left right of this screen. The site is also considered a transitional area between the historic Plattersley and the railway. So at 5 to 10 storeys, the proposal is considered acceptable in principle. The design guide also considers sites that face the railway as being a front door to Luton, so they should positively support a rich, layered townscape. It is therefore considered that the further refinement that was originally sought in site layout could have also been developed in the massing articulation, in particular the 9-storey link blocks that obstruct the views through, as you can see in the images here. Next slide, please. The mixed-use building has been located to allow views through from the station to Bute Mills with its distinctive water tower, and this is welcomed. as I said earlier, the level of harm to the historic environment must be given significant weight in the planning balance, albeit as a distinct plot separated from Plattersley by Bute Street. As discussed, the site layout doesn't fully integrate or respond to the existing urban grain of the surrounding area, and this impacts the character and alters perception and legibility of key views to this area. Next slide, please. Historic England and our heritage consultant, Beams, also raised concerns about the view along Cheapside towards Bute Mills in particular. The 5-storey mixed-use building is visible behind, such that the water tower is less distinct in the skyline, as can be seen in this view comparison on screen. It has been concluded that the proposal represents less than substantial harm to the conservation area and nearby Grade 2 listed buildings. Under paragraph 208 of the NPPF, where less than substantial harm arises, this must be balanced against the public benefits of the scheme. Next slide, please. The way the facades are articulated and composed has a significant effect on how the building is perceived at street level and in long views. For the residential buildings, the framework of designing a base, middle and top to the elevations is supported with attractive contemporary brick detailing that references the historic context of Plattersley in the Luton grey, brown and red brick colours. The composition of fenestration, horizontal banding, the balconies and cladding panels that enhance verticality are also considered to provide visual interest and variation, as well as a sense of human scale. Next slide, please. To the mixed-use building, a different elevation approach has been adopted, with a checkered pattern of offset windows paired with contrasting cladding panels. This breaks up the form, bringing rhythm and proportion to the facades. The materials also relate to the historic context, while being distinctly contemporary, and a material sample condition will ensure high-quality material selection and detailing is delivered. Murals or patterning is proposed to the blank areas to the different building, to the blank areas of the ground and first floor projection facing onto the square. And the applicant has been encouraged to engage local artists and community groups in the final designs for these panels, and that will be assessed via a planning condition. Overall, it's considered that the elevation treatment to the different buildings on site is well designed, informed by contextual analysis, and is successful in mitigating some of the massing articulation issues with the form, whilst creating a development that is distinctly of Luton and forms a high-quality new gateway into the town. Next slide, please. As a key benefit of the scheme, the proposal provides a significant amount of new public space and communal gardens for residents. This contributes to urban greening, biodiversity, urban heat island effect mitigation, sustainable drainage, and providing high-quality amenity space for visitors and residents alike. In line with Luton 2040 ambitions for a child-friendly town, the applicant has considered play and how different user groups would use the spaces at different times of day to contribute to social cohesion and inclusivity. Further detail on the landscaping design and maintenance strategy is required by planning condition. Next slide, please. Providing 48% larger homes, considered 2-bedroom, 4-person and larger, with all homes meeting national space standards and M42 adaptable homes, with well-designed internal layouts, private external amenity provision to 89% of the homes, and high-quality shared gardens, the proposal is considered to meet the requirements of LLP 15. Officers would have, however, preferred recessed balconies rather than projecting for better facade articulation and usability. Furthermore, the 9 to 10-storey C-shaped block plan causes some issues in lack of outlook, privacy, natural light and cross ventilation, particularly for the single aspect units that face onto the internal courtyard, combined with the townscape impacts of this form that has been discussed earlier. The mixed-use building, shown in an exploded diagram on the right, comprises, previous page, please. So the exploded diagram shows the mixed-use building. The blue colour shows that the 3 upper floors are flexible office space and are accessed from Bute Street. And then the ground and first floors are accessed from the Square and Station Road, and they contain the performance venue, the food court, with mezzanine and double height spaces. This will be delivered as a flexible shell and core until a commercial operator is appointed. Arrangements for access will be agreed via a community use agreement planning condition. And this is envisaged for a variety of uses such as school performances, community choirs, exercise classes and toddler groups, community workspace, or book clubs, for example. This is considered to accord with policy LLP 24. The acoustic design of the performance venue has been subject to extensive review with Luton's environmental protection officers at pre-up stage, and further technical submissions are required by planning condition. A robust building management plan that addresses the complexities across the various uses, user groups and programme is also required by planning condition. Next slide, please. Approximately 6 dwellings on Bute Street would be impacted somewhat in terms of overshadowing, albeit a minimum 19-metre distance is maintained. The proposal has also been designed to minimise impact to the future development at 2 to 12 Guildford Street. There are commercial buildings that would be affected in terms of outlook and natural light, but are considered less significant given the dense town centre location. Supported by a daylight and sunlight assessment, the impact to existing adjoining occupiers is considered acceptable. The local highway authority has confirmed the access and servicing strategy is acceptable. The absence of private car parking for residential occupants is supported given the accessible location close to public transport and town centre amenities. The proposal includes residential cycle stores for 114 spaces, as well as a public cycle hub with a minimum of 196 spaces. An independently reviewed financial viability assessment concludes that a policy compliance scheme would not be viable. Therefore, no affordable housing or financial contributions are proposed, although a later viability review mechanism is included in the Shadows Section 106 agreement terms, up to a maximum contribution of around £7.5 million. So to conclude, the proposal provides a residential-led mixed-use development in line with the site allocation under policy LLP 11. A community use agreement will secure access to the performance and food court spaces for local benefit, and the scheme has also been informed by extensive public consultation. While not all aspects of the design proposal are considered an optimum solution for the site, with some conflict with some guidelines within our design guide, the impact on the surrounding area and historic environment is balanced against provision of family homes, quality of internal space, high quality elevation treatment, materiality and landscaping, public space provision and community access, as well as bringing a vacant site back into use to connect and activate the town centre. These public benefits are considered to outweigh the less than substantial harm to the identified designated heritage assets in accordance with paragraph 208 of the NPPF. For these reasons, it is considered that the proposed development comprises a sustainable form of development with wider public benefits. On that basis, it is recommended that planning permission is granted, subject to the conditions as set out in Appendix 1 of the committee report, and the accompanying Memorandum of Understanding and Shadows Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Eleanor. Lisa Skinner, as a representative of the applicant, come forward. And you've got up to 5 minutes to speak in support of the application. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I'm Lisa Skinner, planning consultant for this project. On behalf of the applicant and the project team, we would like to thank members for allowing us the opportunity to speak at this meeting. The approved Luton Town Centre Master Plan sets out the vision to regenerate this area and has been key to this project. This development creates an exciting opportunity to build on this vision and create a gateway to the town centre and train station. The development before you follows a detailed assessment of the site itself, including physical constraints such as site levels, heritage assets, and the wider site context. Members will recall that this site was previously occupied by a multi-storey car park. Buildings of a significant height are therefore not unfamiliar in this area and are actively promoted in the master plan. This proposal has been designed comprehensively and provides links to other developments such as Power Court that includes the football stadium and extends up to 17 storeys in height. Working together has been a key part of this proposal. We have had detailed pre-application discussions with your officers, built on the initial consultation from the Town Centre Master Plan, engaged with various stakeholders, including community groups, youth groups, the Arts and Culture Strategy Group, to name but a few. We've held a public consultation event. We've visited other performance venues and engaged with specialist consultants. This collaborative working is evident in the fact that there are no objections from the 265 members of the community that have been consulted on this application. The project has evolved taking into account all this feedback. This has enabled a full and detailed planning application to be brought before you. This is deliverable and meets the funding criteria for the council and the government's Levelling Up Fund. This is the first major project of this nature in the area and will act as a catalyst for other projects. There are several key parts to this proposal. The residential mix has been carefully developed with the council's housing team to increase the quality and number of family-sized homes in the town centre, with 48% of the units as larger homes, as stated in the committee report. The commercial and community offering includes space for everyone, with modern office accommodation, a food court, retail, and the performance venue. Overall, it is estimated that 642 jobs would be created. The plaza creates a meeting place to improve the public realm and connectivity in the area, with soft landscaping forming a community garden with tree and shrub planting that significantly increases the biodiversity on the site. Luton 2040 sets a clear commitment to becoming a carbon neutral town by 2040, and the proposals align with this. The site is in a highly sustainable location, and the proposals have taken advantage of this to promote walking and cycling. The residential element is car-free, with cycle provision above the normal standards. A separate cycle hub for 196 cycle spaces is proposed for use by the wider community. The building design aligns with the council's objectives and takes a fabric-first approach and includes the use of air source heat pumps with a focus on water and energy efficiency. The applicant intended to provide 20% affordable housing on site to meet policy. However, due to the increased building costs and changes in the economy, this is not viable. A viability statement was submitted with the application that has been independently assessed. The consultant agreed with the conclusions that the proposal is unviable. To deliver a scheme of this nature, the funding from the councils and the government's Levelling Up Fund is therefore critical. There are, however, significant public benefits from the proposal that have been listed in the committee report, including the number of family-sized units, improvements to the public realm, the community cycle hub, the provision of high-quality commercial accommodation, the performance venue, and creation of jobs on a permanent basis and during construction. This project would benefit all members of the community. New developments lead to change, and we believe this proposal represents a high-quality development that would bring to fruition this part of the town centre master plan that seeks to regenerate the area and follows the town centre design guide. It is deliverable and would act as a catalyst for other developments. We hope members will agree with the officer's recommendation and grant planning permission for this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions to the applicants? Zaneb, I saw you first, then.
I just wanted to know, maybe if I'm missing it, where the residents' refuse bin area is.
So the servicing strategy sort of includes maintaining the same vehicle routes as the existing. So the servicing will happen from Station Road. So yes, this is the plan. Thanks, Gemma. So it's small on the screen, but the green line represents how refuse collection would work So it isn't a public road up Station Road, it's only buses that are allowed, but with the Highway Authority it's been agreed that refuse vehicles can come down this road. And you can see that there's one refuse store for each of the residential blocks, and then you can see where the commercial bin store is as well, to the rear of the mixed use building. Does that help?
Okay.
Yeah, I've tried to make sense of the site plans, where at the moment you've got the car park on Beach Street, and there's a bit above which is on Station Road. Will that be incorporated into this site? Because and if so, how do you propose? Is there going to be a lot of excavation work, and will that cause disruption while that's happening? It's just for my own understanding.
Yeah, so
I'm raising any potential objection.
Thank you. Yeah, there is a significant level change across the site with 2 distinct levels. So that will be graded through the works, which will involve significant earthworks. The construction management plan has been considered as part of this application rather than a separate planning condition. So our environmental protection officers and officers are all content that that is sufficient to mitigate the impacts of dust and noise and air quality and all of that. I don't know if perhaps the architect can explain how the level change works in the proposal.
Hi, James Felstead, Charles Gradden Lewis Architects. As you've indicated, there's quite a complex change in levels through the site. So there's a change in level east to west as you go across the long form of the site, which is a sort of gradual, continual sort of slope. And obviously you can kind of see that when you're stood on Station Road in between the railway station and the site itself. As you cross north to south, it's a little bit confusing, and I'll be honest, it took us a while to sort of wrap our heads around this when we were designing. If you were to take a section through the site, the levels of the pavement on either side are actually within about half a metre or at most a metre from each other. So it's quite level north to south if you take pavement to pavement line. But within the site itself, there's sort of a line that runs halfway through, running east to west, so the long way through the site, and effectively the site drops down. There's then a retaining wall, and then there's a built-up level on the north side of the site. So a bit like the applicant on Power Quarters outlined, there'll need to be a cut and fill exercise to kind of level that out. Now, obviously, we're hoping that the majority of that can be dealt with within the site, and the fact that there's kind of 2 halves gives us good reason to, think that there's a fairly equal balance there between that kind of exercise. But a more detailed study will be needed for that. I hope that explains it. Sorry. There are some diagrams within the design and access statement that show the sections through the site, which might make that a little clearer, but I don't know if they're available in the presentation.
Thanks, Chair. I have a couple of questions, if I may. I'll start with the first one. So I understand from my colleague, Councillor Franks, who unfortunately can't be here tonight, that originally there were plans for there to be a block of social housing funded from the housing revenue account. However, obviously in this account, in this application, there's no mention of this. There's no provision for social housing and indeed no affordable housing. I just wonder whether you're able to comment this or provide any background on that.
Hi, I'm Claire Asprey, Head of Housing Strategy and Development, and responsible for the Housing Revenue Account Council Housing Development Programme. Just to clarify the situation here, we are in discussions around taking Block C for council housing on this scheme. It has had approval in principle at executive, will form part of the final business case when that comes to executive and through the committees sort of in a couple of months' time. However, that isn't being provided as part of the planning application. The viability on the application itself isn't there for the inclusion of affordable housing. This would be a separate arrangement for what would effectively therefore be a tenure switch from open market properties to council housing rented properties. So we hope, but I cannot guarantee because it's not had approval yet, but we intend for there to be 84 council housing properties for rent on this site. But that is not being secured as part of the planning application. It's a separate arrangement which will come for decision as part of the final business case. Hope that helps.
That does. Thanks very much. And I'll just, if I may, have a question on the viability assessment. So, would it be right to say that the viability assessment and the review of the viability assessment would have been performed by different entities, one on behalf of LBC as the applicant and any other on behalf of LBC as a local planning authority?
Yes, that's correct.
That's my question. Thank you.
Our own assessor that does it. Any further questions to the applicant? Councillor Ambler.
Thank you, Chair. Where to start? I have a few questions. So first of all, there are only 67 3-bed house out of 265 house flats. So in Luton, everyone aware of there's a big crisis of 3 beds and more than 3 beds family homes. Is there anything I would like to get attention to the officer? Is there anything we can request to developer to review and see if they can increase the 3 beds, number of 3 beds house on their proposal? Is there any possibility? Number one. Number two is you have mentioned on the report only 10 parking space available for emergency on the page number on the point 111. So you have mentioned you have some mixed space premises for office and other public places. Do you think it is enough? What happens if there are some disabled people wanted to have a use or any disabled residents? So I think this 10 space, it is very, very tiny. We need to increase at least 20 to 30 spaces for emergency users, disabled users, disabled service users, or the residents as well. So I would like to request the applicant and the officer, if there any chance, can review.
The first question was the housing mix.
Yes.
You feel there's insufficient 3 beds?
Yeah, so it's insufficient. I would like to request more 3 beds on the proposal.
Yeah.
Because we have in Luton, we have a full of 1 beds house.
Yeah.
Would be like, we need 3 beds more houses and,
We have,
more parking space.
Yeah, we have been addressing that in the last few years.
Thank you.
With regard to 1 beds, but yeah, if you want to comment.
Thank you for the questions. So for the first question regarding mix, it's understood that there is a really great need for 3-bed homes and larger within Luton, and there has been an over delivery of 1-bed homes to date, which is reflected in our monitoring as well. We do still need to deliver 2-bed homes. We haven't over delivered on 2-bed, so we do consider that the proposed mix meets a need. And in fact, because the majority, 48%, nearly the majority, 48% is 2-bedroom and 4-person and larger, that is considered a family home. So the mix proposed is also related to viability, and it's also related to providing a mixed and socially cohesive development. So we are unable to press applicants beyond this kind of mix. And in terms of family homes, we would be looking for houses as well. So, we're looking at the full mix of where houses with gardens and parking spaces can also be provided. So in terms of what's possible on this site, in terms of the constraints, it's right in the middle of the town centre, space is at a premium, but also the opportunities of being very close to public transport and town centre amenities, that creates the specific type of living that is being shown here. But yeah, we recognise the point you raise about needing more family housing in the borough, and it's something that we do push on within applications. In terms of parking and in terms of disabled homes, again, we would normally try and push to have 10% wheelchair accessible homes that should also come with disabled parking spaces. But that isn't within our policy, so it's not something that we can actually require of applicants currently. But they are provided as M42, which is adaptable homes. So that means that within the internal layout, there is sufficient space and circulation and layout to be able to make adaptations for disabled users. So it's kind of between a fully wheelchair accessible and a regular home. But on the point about parking, again, it's being brought forward as a car-free development in relation to the residents, and that's been accepted by the Highway Authority as acceptable in this location. Does that answer your question?
The location, you couldn't get any nearer to the railway station or the busway. Highly sustainable location. So I'm happy with it.
Actually, I'm not satisfied. You have mentioned 48% family home, but you classify 2 beds as a family home, which is kind of not compatible for the Luton needs. Luton needs family home means 3 beds or 4 beds. So I think you try to mislead this figure. This thing 48%. It is not a family home. It's a 2 beds. We categorize it mostly for commercial purpose. So in Luton, what the demand is a 3 beds. I think more than 5,000 people are on waiting on the council. So I would like to request if you make any changes and increase the number of 3 bed house and increase the parking, because you are building at a fixed structure. We don't know what will happen in 5 years time. So we need more parking space. So 10 parking spaces is not enough, even though it's close to the Luton. What happens is most of the weekend we have rail strike. And what about the service user if somebody coming for visiting? And so I think I'm not satisfied your answer and your proposal. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody respond? I think it's
Claire. And perhaps Claire could explain how the 2 bed, 4 person and larger homes meet Luton's needs.
So when we are commenting on planning applications from a housing strategy perspective, we recognise the kind of delivery picture for Luton and the comparison of what's been delivered against what was in the original SHMA, which does go back a bit, but absolutely there's been an undersupply of larger family homes. We always ask for 2 bed, 4 person and above, partly because it's a recognition that 2 bed, 3 person homes, particularly in the affordable housing space, can become overcrowded quite quickly. So that's our kind of point that we ask for, and that's been generally picked up as a sort of baseline for what we would consider family homes within Luton. We absolutely have, from an affordable perspective, a high demand for 2 bedroom properties. It forms a large portion of the cohort of people who, for example, are in temporary accommodation. So we know that there is a demand. I mean, there's obviously a demand for all sorts of accommodation, especially affordable accommodation in Luton. But we also do recognise that the larger 3 and 4 bedroom family homes, it's a huge challenge. And again, I would sort of refer to what Ellen was saying around what's the best use of a particular site and making sure we get the best uses of all the different sites that might be available in this particular context. That's how this scheme has played out in terms of the kind of best mix of delivery that was possible.
okay. Any further questions? Francis?
Can I ask what a shadow 106 agreement is? Shadow 106 agreement.
Al?
Sounds very ominous, doesn't it? So it is explained in the report very succinctly at page, I don't know, search for the word shadow.
I don't, if you've got it here.
Paragraph 124.
124, yeah. So if you want to have that open at the same time. So because the council is the owner of the site, you can't, in any legal document, you can't enter a legal document with yourself. So you can't tell yourself what to do. That's why we can't have a Section 106 agreement. So the best way I think we can do it is this shadow Section 106, which is basically all the nuts and bolts triggers that you would have in a Section 106 agreement between us and a third party are replicated in a 106 agreement that isn't completed because we can't enter an agreement with ourselves, but it sits behind a memorandum of understanding signed by the service director for fixed assets, essentially promising to carry out all those obligations in that shadow Section 106 agreement. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. I thought that's what the answer was going to be.
Any further questions? Then we'll go on to any comments. There being no comments, then I think we'll move to the resolution then. And I think it's goes to Amber. I think that this is an acceptable, it's not ideal, but it's an acceptable housing mix on there. I think it's an acceptable development. So the recommendation is to approve with the conditions. So I'll move approval. Is that seconded?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Ajisola. Councillor Ambia.
Against.
Councillor Bridgen. For. Councillor Haniff. Councillor Mead.
For.
Councillor Raja.
For.
Councillor Steer.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Carried, Chair.
And that's carried. So planning and permission is granted, subject to the various conditions. Thank you very much. The next one we'll go on to is Lucy Sports Park, Pastures Way, which is page 132. Clive.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this is an application at Lucy Sports Park, Pastures Way in Luton. The application is seeking planning permission for the erection of a 40 metre by 33 metre canopy over 7 cricket lanes, which is to be used for sports practice. Also included is the erection of a staff and member facility building, and it has associated car and cycle parking. There is an update on this application as per the written update report circulated. There have been recent responses to the application from Beds Fire and Rescue Service, who are requesting a fire suppression system. Additionally, the Greenstone Trust have responded to say that biodiversity net gain trading rules are being met and that no further action relating to biodiversity is required for this application. And finally, today, we've actually received a response from Bedfordshire Police as well. And they do not object in principle to the application, but they are requesting a crime and safety planning condition is attached to any grant of permission. This can be included and would require a scheme for crime prevention measures to be submitted in writing to the local planning authority for approval prior to the commencement of above ground works. In the same way, a fire suppression system can also be required by condition prior to the commencement of above ground works. So I'll just take you through just a few slides. The first slide just demonstrates where the proposal would be situated within the wider Lucy Park area. It's right in the centre of the site and is a former sports pitch. It's currently in use as a temporary parking area for the construction staff associated with the ongoing redevelopment of the Luton and Dunstable Hospital. The next slide. This is the application site outlined in red. It seeks to utilise approximately 1/3 of the former sports pitch area. And the next slide. This is the general layout of the facility with the main cricket dome sort of outlined in blue. The supporting pavilion building is just to the west of that, and to the west again is the parking area. The next slide just shows the layout and the elevations of the Cricket Shield facility, which would have a maximum height of 8.4 metres. Final slides. This is a computer generated image of the proposed Cricket Shield, and the very final slide is the elevations of the small support building. Thank you. Members will see from paragraph 22 of this item that the main planning considerations relate to the principle of development, the impact on the character and appearance of the area, the impact on neighbouring amenity, transport and parking implications, and issues relating to biodiversity, sustainability and economic development. Set within one of the council's district parks, the key policy relevant to the consideration of this application is policy LLP 27 of the local plan. And policy LLP 27 relates to open space and natural green space, and in general supports proposals that safeguard and enhance the existing networks of open space, including district and neighbourhood parks, and also to establish new green infrastructure within the borough. In particular, criterion B 2 of policy LLP 27 states that the loss of open space will be permitted exceptionally if the proposal is for alternative or ancillary sports and recreational provision, the need for which clearly outweighs the loss. So the current proposal is considered to meet the justification for the loss of the former sports pitch by providing an alternative sport and recreational provision, in this instance an all-weather cricket facility. Specifically, the proposal would introduce an innovative, world-leading climate protection system for outdoor cricket, which would enable cricket to be played all year round in any weather by a variety of local clubs, community groups and schools. The state-of-the-art facility would be open to all members of the public throughout the year, offering the opportunity to practice and play cricket throughout the year. This type of facility strongly supports the English Cricket Board's aim of enabling wider access to the game. The facility would also support active and healthy lifestyles in accordance with both the National Planning Policy Framework requirements and the Council's wider aspirations, while also providing a community hub for the local cricket community. Prior to the use of the site for the temporary car park, the sports pitch was in a poor condition and was generally underused given this condition. The new cricket facility would thus meet the policy requirements of both LLP 27 and paragraph 102C of the National Planning Policy Framework by providing alternative sports provision, the need for which clearly outweighs the loss of the current or former use. Further, the proposal would also comply with policy LLP 24 of the local plan, as it would result in equivalent or better replacement community facilities. Finally, the proposal would make cricket accessible to a wider audience throughout the year. This would support the development of the game at a grassroots level and give people the opportunity to engage with cricket more often throughout the year. This access to the game supports the principles in the NPPF to enable and support healthy lifestyles. Accordingly, the proposal is considered to be acceptable in principle. With regard to the impact of the proposal on the character and appearance of the area, the proposed canopy would have no discernible impacts on the street scene given the distances to Ravenhill Way, Pastures Way and Leagrave High Street. Further, whilst the design is relatively functional to support the use, the bespoke design of the canopy is considered to be acceptable in this parkland setting and minimise its impact with the use of the curved roof. It is recognised that it would result in a large structure being introduced in this location, but the site is already developed with a sports pitch and associated fencing. The building would indicate a new leisure use in this recreational area, and with the use in an appropriate condition to control materiality, it is considered that the impact of the canopy on the character and appearance of the area would be acceptable. In relation to the impact of the proposal on the landscape character of the area, it is recognised that the proposal would introduce a large structure into the area of local landscape value, which is not considered to conserve or enhance its setting. However, the significant benefits of the proposal in relation to having a state-of-the-art sporting facility in an existing recreational park setting and the associated public benefits that would arise from its use are considered to outweigh any limited harm to the area of local landscape value in this instance. In relation to the impact of the proposal on neighbouring residential amenity, the nearest residential properties to the site are located approximately 30 metres to the south of the site in Loftus Close and Dalby Close. This distance, combined with a significant landscape buffer alongside the Lucy Brook, will ensure that the proposal would not affect the amenity of the occupiers of these properties in terms of loss of light, outlook, loss of privacy or noise. No other residential properties are considered to be in close enough proximity to be affected by the proposal. The applicant has applied for hours of opening between 9 AM and 10 PM, which is considered to be reasonable, and a condition is included to limit the hours to those requested. With other conditions to control external lighting, potential noise impact, and the construction of the facility, the proposal is considered to be able to avoid any adverse impacts on neighbouring uses in accordance with policy LLP 38 of the local plan. In relation to access, highway and parking implications, the Highway Authority has stated that there are no particular highway concerns with the proposal, as the traffic generation would be likely to be negligible. In relation to parking, there are no standards for this specific use in the current local plan, and the amount of parking is to be considered on the individual merits of the application. The proposal provides for 21 car parking spaces, including 2 disabled spaces, which is considered to be a reasonable level for this facility. Any further parking required could be accommodated in the existing sports centre car park if required. 2 electric vehicle parking spaces are required through submission of details in the car park management plan required by condition. Finally, the proposal also provides rate cycle parking spaces in a dedicated shelter, which is welcomed. Accordingly, the proposal is considered to accord with both policies LLP 31 and LLP 32 of the local plan. In relation to biodiversity, as set out in the update report, the Greensand Trust have advised that no further information is required for this application, and a landscaping condition is included as recommended condition 8. With regard to sustainability and climate change, the proposals for a canopy and support building are bespoke designs for this specific use and its intended use. Accordingly, very little waste arises from the development process. The canopy structure itself is made from a durable and highly resistant membrane, the manufacturers of which have environmental accreditations and demonstrates their commitment to sustainability. In terms of energy requirements, the canopy has a requirement for lighting so that it can be used during the hours of darkness. As such, all lighting will be from LED low energy bulbs. Conditions are required relating to cycle parking and electric vehicle charging bays to support trips to the site by more sustainable modes of transport. In this way, the proposal accords with policies LLP 1, LLP 25 and LLP 37 in relation to promoting sustainable transport choices and supports the Council's stated drive to achieve carbon net zero by 2040. With regard to economic development, the proposed development would support economic development by bringing the former sports pitch back into a recreational use and by providing employment opportunities in the operation of the facility. Additionally, the proposal would generate employment opportunities in the construction sector during the facility's construction phase, whilst also supporting indirect employment opportunities through the supply chain. As such, the proposed development would support regeneration in the local area and would also provide full-time employment opportunities to manage the facility based in the support building. These benefits are a material consideration that weigh in favour of the application and would accord with policy LLP 13 of the local plan that supports the delivery of sustainable economic growth. So in conclusion, the report demonstrates that the proposal is acceptable in principle. The proposal complies with policy LLP 27 of the local plan by providing an alternative sports provision for which there is a clear need within the town. The proposal also accords with the MPPF and policy LLP 24 of the local plan by providing equivalent or better community facility provision at the site within Lucy Park. Additionally, the impact of the proposal on the character and appearance of the area would be acceptable, as would the impact on the area of local landscape value. The report has also found that the impact on neighbouring residential amenity would be acceptable, the highways impact and parking provision would be acceptable, and that the impacts on biodiversity and sustainability would also all be acceptable with the imposition of suitable conditions. Finally, the proposal would also provide for job creation during construction and operation, which would support sustainable economic growth. For these reasons, it is considered that the development comprises a sustainable and high quality form of development. On this basis, it is recommended that planning permission is granted, subject to the conditions set out in the committee report and the additional conditions relating to site security measures and fire suppression systems. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Clive. Have we got Kay Collins, the applicant, on the Teams?
Yes, hello, good evening. Thank you very
Hello.
much.
Yeah.
Hello. I won't speak very long because Clive has said much of what I wanted to say. So you won't have to listen for too long. I'm sure you'll be glad to hear.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Just want to say that I'm grateful to the council and the ECB, who we've worked closely with in developing these proposals. The cricket pavilion, the cricket canopy is a really important part of the ECB's objectives for making cricket accessible and available to many more people and throughout the year. So it's a really important development. This will be one of the very first in the country, and it's a marvellous facility that we hope that the community and local sports facilities can all enjoy when it's up and running. That's all I have to say. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask, because I appreciate it's slightly unusual development that you won't see very many of. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I'll see if members have got some questions to you. Any questions? No questions? Questions to the planning officer? Lee?
Thanks, Chair. So yeah, obviously subject to approval, hopefully this facility will be used for many years to come. But just thinking about the end of life of this facility, what protections are in place to ensure that it continues to be used for recreational use once this building is no longer needed? And if there is no protection, could a condition be added that it's returned to its previous use as sports pitch or open green space?
Through you, Chair. Yes, I mean, if it was felt necessary, you know, at the end of life, to return this back to sports provision, that could well be a condition of it. In terms of its use and management, as far as I understand, it's going to be run by us as a council or by a charitable group on our behalf. I don't know, Kay, is anyone from the applicant team available to just expand on how it's proposed to be managed and operated?
I can expand a bit. I've been speaking with Mark Davey from the council, who's advised that yes, it will be either the council or a charitable partner who will manage it on the council's behalf. Total Play, who are the applicants, are merely the guys who construct the facility, and then it's passed over. The intention is that it's not profit generating; it pays its way basically with the council, and it's all about making it accessible and affordable for local community groups and sports clubs. To answer the question.
Thank you. So I mean, just to I guess further expand on that. So would it be possible to actually add a condition? I'm just thinking about something along the lines of, I think what was put in place for this, I think it's Stopsley Community Centre, when that was discontinued and knocked down. I think there was a condition that part of that was returned to sort of open green space and playing fields. So I'd certainly feel a lot more comfortable if that was actually worded in the form of a condition.
Yeah, through you, Chair, it's certainly possible to put that condition on. I assume you would need to vote on the additional sort of amendment to it.
But it's a sports field anyway, isn't it? So it couldn't really revert to anything else. If that's what you're saying, Lee.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we protect against, I guess, end of life and it not being considered, say, almost like a brownfield site, and hence converted to housing or some other use, to protect it to be continued for recreational use.
Yeah, I think certainly, the end of life of building to be restored back to, maybe a grassland condition, or a sports pitch, which, I guess it's for members to decide if that they feel that's appropriate.
Well, if it needs a motion, then I'm happy to put that forward as the addition of a condition along those lines.
Yeah, we can accept that, can't we?
I think that's debate as it's necessary.
Yeah. Okay, we're advised to vote on it in case it's on that condition.
So for item 10, so councillor,
If we read out what the condition is
Yeah.
first, that once it ceases being what you're saying, when it ceases being a cricket pavilion, greenhouse, whatever it is, then it reverts back to a public open space. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
thank you, Chair. Councillor Adjasola. This is for the additional condition. Yeah. Councillor Ambia.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Bridgen.
For.
Councillor Banerjee left the room. Councillor Mead.
For.
Councillor Raja.
For.
Councillor Steer.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
That's carried, Chair.
That's carried. We can add that as an insurance policy. Now,
Thank you, Chair. This butts right up to the Lucy Brook, which is a chalk stream. And over the last couple of 100 years or so, we've lost not over 90% of our chalk streams. Therefore, those which remain, we must cherish and love. Can you assure us that there will be no runoff from the site during the construction stage and the operational stage into the brook, that some barrier be constructed to stop that from happening?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Can you just go back to the site plan? That's it. One more. Back down. That's it. Yeah, so from this slide, you can see it's only the top half of the former sports pitch that's looking to be converted to the cricket facility. So there is an existing sports pitch with its own drainage that's already in situ in this location. So there's no concern about the proximity to the Lucy Brook and any damage. We've consulted the lead local flood authority, who are satisfied, and there's no requirement to consult the Environment Agency because it's more than 8 metres away from the Lucy Brook. So I think, in conclusion, we're satisfied that it would have an acceptable impact on the Lucy Brook.
okay, any further questions? Councillor?
Thank you, Chair. I have one comments, actually, not questions. But you have mentioned. Thank you. You have mentioned this location will be looked after by Active Luton. Is it correct? It will be maintained under the Active Luton.
Yeah, possibly through the council or a charitable group. On our behalf.
Thank you. Yeah. Have you done any financial feasibility analysis for the future? Because will the Active Luton will afford to maintain? Because some of these facilities, they are also struggling to manage. They are planning to hand over to the council because they got funded by the Luton Rising, and it depends on lots of element, financial constraint, and some other economic
I think
things.
that financial issues are not planning issues.
Okay.
It's up to the applicant. We just
Okay.
approve or not approve the application that's in front of us. Finance has nothing to do with us.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any further comments? Then we'll go to the recommendation is to approve, subject to the conditions and the additional condition that we've added. I'll move approval.
Can I second it, please?
Seconded. Matt moves to vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Atisola.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Ambier.
For.
Councillor Bridgen.
For.
Councillor Mead.
For.
Councillor Raja.
For.
Councillor Steer.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Carried, Chair.
That's carried unanimously. Okay.
Chair,
Well, I
can we
was
have
just
a
going to
break?
suggest that. I was going to suggest that there's one 4 Union Street with the applicant. Or do you want to break now? If you want to break, we'll have a break now then. I mean, yeah, we still got to listen to the applicant from 4 Union Street.
Could we have a break now?
Because unfortunately they're agenda item 13, so they're a little bit unlucky. So we'll have a break now. All right, 5 minutes. Right, you ready? Reconvene, please. We're now on 4 Union Street, which is, when I find it, 187. David, it's you again.
Sorry about that.
Is everyone done?
Thank you, Chair. If I could have the first slide, please. This application seeks permission for the redevelopment to provide 45 apartments in 2 blocks comprising 36 2-bedroom and 9 1-bedroom apartments with a new access onto Holly Street, car parking, amenity areas and associated works after the demolition of existing office building and a cash and carry warehouse. There is an update on this item which has been provided in the update sheet. This application is brought to committee as it is a major application. The first slide shows the application site is situated between Union Street and Holly Street. It lies adjacent to the Hightown Housing Association development at Swift Court to the west of the site. If I could have the second slide, please. The application site is currently occupied by a 2-storey office building on the Union Street frontage with the large Central Oriental Food Centre, a cash and carry warehouse with access onto Union Street. The site is bounded to the east by the Holly Street Trading Estate, and the site is comprised of a mixed use, including residential and industrial development. Next slide, please. The proposed development takes the form of 2 blocks, each 5 stories high. Block A, which fronts onto Holly Street, providing vehicular access to a courtyard, which provides parking and amenity space, and Block B, which fronts onto Union Street. Next slide, please. The next series of slides show the elevation. This slide shows the front elevation of Block A, the Holly Street frontage. The next slide, please. This shows the rear elevation of Block A. The next slide, please. This slide shows the front elevation of Block B, the Union Street frontage. And next slide, please. The rear elevation of Block B. Next slide, please. This slide provides details of the street scene envisaged from Holly Street. It will be noted that the proposed development picks up design features of the adjoining residential development to which I referred, which is the Hightown Housing Association development. The next slide, please. Similarly, the street scene from Union Street has been designed to pick up the features of the adjoining development, which is, as I just mentioned, the Hightown Housing Association development. Next slide, please. This provides details of typical floor layouts in Block A and B, which is replicated in Block B. They have the same floor areas, both of these sites. The next slide, please. This slide provides details of the area surrounding the site. The top left slide is the northwest towards the southern end of the site. The top right slide is the view northwest along Holly Street. The bottom left slide is the view east towards the western corner of the site. And the bottom right slide is the view southeast along Holly Street. The large white building in the top slide and top left slide and the bottom left slide is the cash and carry warehouse. Members will see from the report that the main planning considerations are set out in paragraph 24. Insofar as the principle of development is concerned, the development on the site comprises a large commercial building at present in use for Class B, 8, and an office element. The office element has been vacant for a considerable number of years. It remains empty despite numerous applications for alternative development. Insofar as the large warehouse is concerned, it is to be vacated if planning permission is granted, as the business operators propose to consolidate their business to the more modern premises they own in Milton Keynes. A viability report provided by the applicant states that the site is and has not been for some time fit for purpose. The assertions made in the submission provided by the applicant are corroborated by details set out in the Luton Employment Land Review 2015. The application site in the review is identified as low amber red rather than an amber site. The assessment comments that whilst these sites all have high value as employment sites at the current time, particularly given their proximity to the town centre and access to labour, they appear unlikely to attract modern employment and occupy sites that could accommodate higher value uses. These sites have potential for residential should they become vacant and there is no demand for employment uses. Only the office part of the application site is vacant. However, given the foregoing, in particular the unsuitable relationship between the residential and warehouse development and the proposed delivery of affordable housing, which is a material consideration, as a matter of planning judgment, the use of the site for residential purposes outweighs the loss of this part of the Holly Road Category B employment site, the balance of which will remain. The proposed development will allow regeneration, bringing forward a high-quality residential scheme on a site that would reuse a brownfield land and would improve the appearance of the site. Provision of much-needed affordable housing within Luton, all being a continuation of the regeneration of this area. Reference has been made to the provision of affordable housing, and the applicant is working with the Hightown Housing Association. The development is to provide 100% affordable housing, which is compliant with policies LLP 15 and LLP 16. The scheme has been designed to help reduce climate change and would achieve at least 10% of all energy through renewable energy sources. The requirements of policy LLP 25, LLP 31 and LLP 37 are met. Overall, the design is considered to be well considered and of a very high quality. The development would enhance the character and appearance of the area, and it is concluded that the proposal would accord with policy LLP 25 of the local plan. It is considered that the living environment, for the reasons set out in paragraphs 57 to 63 of the report, and the resultant living environment for future occupiers would be acceptable in accordance with policies LLP 1 and LLP 25 and the objectives of section 12 of the framework. Concern has been raised about the impact of the development on the sunlight and daylight of the amenities of adjoining occupiers. The sunlight and daylight report accompanying the application concludes that the proposal does not have any material impact upon the adjacent development, which would result in significant loss of sunlight and daylight. There are no other matters which would materially impact on the adjoining occupiers. Insofar as highway implications are concerned, the highway engineer has raised no objections to the access arrangement and has requested a contribution towards improving sustainable travel infrastructure, which is consistent with policies LLP 31 and LLP 32 of the plan and advice in the NPPF. Insofar as heritage and conservation are concerned, there are no objections. The proposed development would not be inconsistent with paragraph 209 of the NPPF and LLP 30 of the local plan. There are no drainage objections subject to condition. The applicant has provided an ecology appraisal which makes recommendations to safeguard the habitats of species. Insofar as the Chilterns Beechwood SAC is concerned, as set out in the report, the current requirements agreed with Natural England are for developments over 100 dwellings to be the subject of a habitats assessment. In the matter of this application, this does not apply. In terms of third-party representations, this related to sunlight and daylight, and this is covered in paragraphs 64 to 68, and more specifically paragraph 95 of the report. Insofar as affordable housing and developers' contributions are concerned, in the case of the former, to be policy compliant, there is a requirement for the provision of 20% of new residential development to be offered as affordable housing. In this instance, the amount would be 9. However, on this scheme, 100% of the units would be affordable, 45 units. The Section 106 agreement will only secure 20% of affordable housing, and this would be policy compliant. This is a practice that has been adopted on similar such schemes where 100% affordable housing has been offered. In the case of the latter, all contributions requested have been agreed, and this is policy compliant. In conclusion, it is considered that the development provides for a residential development that is considered to offer a strong mix of housing, including 100% affordable units, which would significantly enhance the character and comprises a sustainable and high quality form of development, delivering affordable housing and the required contributions. Overall, it is considered that development is acceptable and approval is recommended. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Duncan Chadwick, are you still with us? Obviously not. Okay. Questions by members? The planning officer.
Just quickly, as I understand it, then there's no formal section 106 because it's 100% affordable, and they've agreed to have conditions such as the highways issue. So not only is it 100% affordable, the applicants have agreed to other conditions, including ones relating to the highways.
Yes, no, that's correct. I mean, it is 100% affordable housing, but the section 106 will only refer to 20% because I understand that if 100% was to be included within the legal agreement, then it would seriously prejudice the funding of the affordable housing. So since this application has been a collaborative approach between the Hightown Housing Association and the applicant, 100% is to be provided, and all contributions are to be met in terms of education, highways, waste and museums. So it's, in that respect, is fully compliant.
You want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just on this point, it's been explained, to be fair, by the planning officer, but because they are offering all contributions, we can't ask for more than the 20% affordable housing because it's policy compliant. If, for example, they weren't offering some or all of the financial contributions, then maybe you could say, well, in this case, maybe 30% affordable housing would therefore be reasonable because you're negotiating and juggling. But because everything is policy compliant, it's simply unreasonable unless we had a change in policy to a higher percentage to refer to and secure any more units other than the 20%. So what you as members can do is you can take the 100% affordable into consideration as a material consideration, but within mind the fact that the 80% could become market units because we're not securing it in the 106 agreement. Okay.
You've got some further information.
Yeah, just by way of context, this is a kind of model that we've done before with Hightown Housing Association for schemes that have been 100% affordable housing, but only 20% is secured within the 106. Broadly speaking, the way that they are funding their homes is that they borrow money and they secure that money against the properties that they own. They get better funding on unsecured assets basically than they would on assets that are within 106. So it supports additional affordable house building for those properties to be outside of the 106, and that's helped them to be the main deliverer of affordable housing in Luton over the last several years. They're pretty much the only housing association building homes in Luton. So on that basis, it's outside of the 106, and we can't demand any more than that, as Stephen said, and we've worked on some wording with them before on other schemes. The other thing I would say is, though, that because they're a registered provider, they're a housing association, they're a regulated provider, and the assets that they hold are regulated stock, Hightown, it's managed in the same way as any other property that they own. And there are also regulatory provisions about what they might do if they were disposing of stock. Those have loosened a bit in the last 10 years, but broadly speaking, the normal practice, if a housing association is looking to dispose of its assets, it almost always goes to another housing association or registered provider to do so. So the likelihood that these other assets are outside of the 106 would come out of affordable provision into private ownership is really remote, because there are a number, even though they're not within the 106, they're quite well protected through the regulatory regime. And in any case, Hightown's business is to deliver affordable housing, right? That's what they're there to do. So that's what they want to do with the rest of the site. I hope that provides some reassurance.
Thanks for that, Claire. Clive, you had a question?
Thank you, Chair. Who gets to choose the residents? Are they referred to the association via LBC, or do they get their own residents, as it were?
You should.
We have a choice-based letting scheme that you're aware of. Local providers use that to allocate properties. We would generally expect to allocate and nominate to Hightown's properties. That's what's happening. In terms of a nominations agreement attached to 106, we might be able to insist on a certain level of that within the 106, but broadly speaking, they don't hold a separate waiting list for Luton. In practice, that their allocations come through a kind of the normal choice-based letting system that we have. Now, we have had conversations with Hightown before where we've referred potential tenants where sometimes it doesn't meet some of their criteria, and those are conversations that we've discussed where their nominations, we insist on those. So broadly speaking, they'll be allocated in the same way as other social housing in the town. In the event of any dispute between ourselves and Hightown around whether or not a nominated person is suitable, it kind of depends on the state of a nominations agreement around those particular lettings. But we get pretty much all the lettings anyway.
It was yes. Okay, any further questions? And Councillor Ambler? And Lee afterwards, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this affordable housing proposal. As far as I understand, the affordable housing is mostly related to the family people, like who has a family, 2, 3, more than 3 or 4 person in the family. But on your proposal, only we're just focusing on 1 beds and 2 beds house. It would be more, appropriate if we propose some 3 beds house can fit with the affordable housing's definition, because this big thing is for people who live in 1 bed, they are financially stable. For the family people who are struggling, they need some subsidy or some sort of things. So is there anything why you not consider 3 beds at all on your proposal?
Well, the application has been prepared in conjunction with the Hightown Housing Association. There are 9 1-bed units, but there are 36 2-bed 4-person units. And given the fact that the Hightown Housing Association have been involved in the preparation and have informed this, it's felt that that is providing the accommodation which they feel is required. And I think there was reference that Claire made in the previous application for the stage, insofar as the question of what you can and what you can't provide. As far as this site is concerned, that the mix that's been provided is in conjunction with and at the behest of the registered provider. So that's the reason why that provision is what it is. I mean, I take the point about providing family houses, but this is a site which is quite tightly constrained, as you'll gather from just looking at the photographic image up there. That's the width of the site, the white building. So it's a question of whether or not that there could be any more. And I think given the limitations of the site, given the height restrictions, that this really was the best option, which met the requirements of the housing association to meet people who would be best who could be best made resident there, as it were.
You see they're providing 23 car parking spaces as well.
That's right. Thanks, Chair. I noticed in the Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue Service feedback that they mentioned about the existing fire hydrants not being sufficient for the proposed development, and they're recommending basically upgrading the fire hydrants and also possibly putting in sprinklers, although I think that's more of a building control point. But I noticed that there were similar comments in the Bute Street application. There's a condition put in for that, but I can't see a condition put in for this application. I wonder whether maybe
we'll add a condition in that respect to cover that point.
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions? Any comments? Then the recommendation is before you to approve. I'll move approval. Is that seconded? We go to the vote, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adresola? 4. Councillor Ambier?
4.
Councillor Bridgen?
4.
Councillor Haniff? Councillor Mead?
4.
Councillor Raja?
4.
Councillor Steer?
4.
Councillor Taylor?
4.
Carried.
That's carried unanimously.
Chair, just as a point of order, is that in a as proposed with the condition on the fire hydrants? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So there is an update to the committee report. The viability assessment submitted has been reviewed and verified by the Council's independent assessor and concluded that the scheme cannot support affordable housing or developer contributions. Therefore, the recommendation section on page 21, part 3, will be amended to remove this reference but include a viability review mechanism instead. First slide, please. The application site is located at 80 to 88 on the northern side of Collingdon Street. The surrounding area is mixed use, including offices, a nursery, as well as residential dwellings. The application seeks to convert and change the use from an office to a residential dwelling with the erection of 2 additional stories, external alterations, including balconies, terraces, to create 16 flats made up of 6 one-beds and 10 two-beds. The main points to consider are the principle of the development, the living environment created, and the design. In terms of the principle of the development, the report discusses the loss of the Category B employment site and weighing up the planning balance. In conclusion, the evidence provided with the application shows that there is not the demand for the current office space that will be lost as part of this proposed development. Further, there is suitable alternative office space available in the vicinity to accommodate any future demand should it arise. The applicant has engaged with the Council's in-app service to amend the scheme. Originally, the proposal was seeking 21 flats made up of 15 one-bed and 6 two-bed, which was considered to be unacceptable. The revised scheme has addressed the housing mix, which now provides a higher number of larger units, which is consistent with the housing need within the borough. Overall, the supporting information received and the amendments made to the scheme, the principle of the development is considered to be acceptable. Next slide, please. The proposal would include the conversion to residential flats and also the addition of 2 additional stories with the top floor setback within the street scene. The proposal also seeks to change the fenestration details of the existing building. This includes changing the windows from white PVC to a dark grey colour and the introduction of external balconies. These amendments are considered to enhance the appearance of the building and also tie into the proposal's top floor material choice.
Given the variation in height and style of properties within the street scene, the introduction of 2 additional stories with the top floor setback is considered to be acceptable. Further, the top floor setback and use of different materials is considered to provide some form of subordination to the existing building. Throughout the in-app process, the applicant has improved the front elevation and the access to the site. The original scheme would have meant the majority of the flats were accessed via the undercroft vehicle access to a rear stairwell on the rear elevation. However, the scheme has now been amended to show a front door entrance on the front elevation of the property with separate gated vehicle access to the rear. This alteration is considered to be an improvement to the scheme, providing much more welcoming arrival for occupiers in adherence with the Town Centre Design Guide SPD. Therefore, overall, the alterations proposed are considered to be an improvement to the design of the existing building. As part of the assessment of the living environment, a daylight and sunlight assessment was carried out, which showed that the original ground floor rear units were unacceptable given their undercroft position and north-facing elevation. The applicant has amended the scheme and replaced these with dedicated storage areas for each of the flats, making better use of the space. The development is now considered to provide a logical arrangement which serves habitable rooms with the appropriate amount of light and outlook. The application site is located within the town centre and is considered to be a sustainable location owing to its close proximity to the Luton Dunstable busway and Luton train station. The scheme does offer 9 parking spaces, 26 cycle storage spaces, as well as individual storage areas. The scheme also provides separate bin storage area away from the street scene within the built form of the ground floor. All of the proposed flats meet the nationally described space standards, and the upper floors benefit from private amenity space in the form of external balconies on the front elevation and winter garden style internal balcony areas on the rear elevation. The proposal also includes replacing the existing windows, and Environmental Protection has requested that a noise assessment is carried out and Type 4 ventilation system used as necessary. Overall, the living environment created is considered to be acceptable. In conclusion, in terms of its principle, design and living environment created, the scheme is considered to be acceptable. The development would therefore be in accordance with the planning policies within the Luton Plan, and approval is recommended. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Gemma. Any questions? Any comments? You happy with the recommendation, which is to approve, subject to the conditions? I'll move approval. Seconded. We'll go to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adjasola? For. Councillor Ambier?
Against.
Councillor Bridgen?
For.
Councillor Farouk? Sorry, Councillor Haniff? Councillor Mead?
For.
Councillor Raja?
For.
Councillor Steer?
For.
Councillor Taylor?
For.
It's carried, Chair.
That's carried.
Thank you, Chair. This is a short item, hopefully. It's land south of junction 11A, M1, Coverdale and Luton. So the planning application is seeking permission for the development of units for flexible general industrial use, which would be use class B2, and or storage and distribution use, which would be use class B8, with ancillary offices and trade counter floor space, an area of open storage and associated landscaping, parking, servicing and other associated works. However, this is a cross-boundary application, so the majority of the physical works are within Central Bedfordshire Council's administrative area, and it's only the new proposed vehicular access junction from Coverdale, which is located in Luton Borough Council's administrative area. So it's therefore a cross-boundary application. There's no update on this item and just a couple of slides. The first slide shows the whole application site outlined in red, which is situated between the M1 and Coverdale. And the next slide This demonstrates the area of the application site that falls within the administrative area of Luton, and it's that shown to the right-hand side of the purple line. So in this instance, we're seeking delegated authority from members for the head of planning to continue to assess the proposals, to allow negotiations with Central Bedfordshire Council and the applicant, and to make the final decision on the application. Members will see from paragraph 14 of this agenda item that the main consideration in regard to Luton is the impact of the development on highway safety. Our highways officers have raised no objections to the development on highway safety grounds. A planning obligation of £12,500 has been requested, along with a contribution of £8,000 towards the introduction of a weight restriction on Toddington Road. These requests are under consideration by Central Beds Council and the applicant. And given the cross-boundary nature of the application, the recommendation for this application is to request delegated authority for the head of planning to continue negotiations with both Central Beds Council and the applicant. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any questions? Any comments? So the recommendation is delegated to the head of planning to continue to assess proposals to negotiations with Central Beds. I'll move the recommendation. Is that seconded? We go to the vote then.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adgesola. For. Councillor Ambia.
For.
Councillor Bridgen.
For.
Councillor Hannah. Councillor Mead.
For.
Councillor Raja.
For.
Councillor Steer.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Carried, Chair.
Application is aerial site Kestrel Way. Although there is an infrastructure funding report at the last item.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Good evening, everyone. This is item 12 on the agenda, which is on page 164. There is an update report for this item. The update report includes additional conditions following consultation responses from the Environmental Protection Officer. There's some minor amendments to some of the other conditions as well. The proposals before you is to erect a brand new SEN school on the site. If we go to the next slide. So this is the site. It's just southeast of Kestrel Way. Kestrel Way forms the boundary, the borough boundary. So everything northwest of the site is Central Beds. The site itself isn't designated, but it does have a rather large aerial mast, telecommunication mast. So locally, it's known as the aerial site. If we go on to the next slide, this shows the configuration of the new SEN school. It's largely going to be 2 stories. It'll cater for 112 pupils and 70 members of staff. There will be 60 parking spaces on site. We consulted 52 of the neighbours surrounding this site, and there was only 2 objections. And the 2 objections related to concerns about potential on-street parking demands. We don't think that is a concern that can be carried because of comments received from our highways officer, who's satisfied with the scheme. Most of the pupils will be attending the school through minibus and coaches, so we don't think there will be any adverse impacts on the highway. If we go into the next slide, you can see it's a 2-story designed school, which is officers consider very attractive in terms of appearance and in terms of layout. If we carry on to the next slide, this is officers are impressed with the quality of the design of the scheme, and it doesn't cause any overlooking or overshadowing issues for the neighbours. The principle of developing the site for an SEN school is established. The council has a need for further education facilities and an even greater need for SEN education facilities. The council has a higher than national average of pupils that need SEN facilities. The national average is 34.9%. In Luton, it's 45%. So overall, this is a scheme that is supported by officers. There is a need for it, and we don't think it causes any negative impacts. Therefore, the proposal before you is to recommend planning permission. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Annie. Questions? Clive.
Thank you, Chair. I've got an idea in my head somewhere. Round on this site or a site nearby, there's a drainage sump. I don't know whether that's still there, and was it on this site, and what's happening to it?
I believe the Environment Agency were consulted on this application, and they would have taken that into account. The local lead flood authority, which is internal, were also consulted, but I don't think neither raised any concerns in regards to flood, drainage, or any of those kind of issues.
Any further questions? Any comments? No further comments, and I think this is an application that we should welcome for secondary SEN, the hydrotherapy pool and a respite centre facilities, much needed in the town. So I recommend approval. I'll move approval. Get the vote, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Adrisola. 4. Thank you. Councillor Ambia. 4. Councillor Bridgen.
4.
Councillor Haniff.
4.
Councillor Mead.
4.
Councillor Raja.
4.
Councillor Steer.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4.
Carried, Chair.
That's unanimous. Annual report. It's in the back somewhere. Yeah, please do.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just introduce our consultant who's helped us with this report. Her name is Mayor-Lisa Hardy. She's online, and she represents Capita, who are the firm that helped us with this report and also previous ones members may recall. Okay, over to you, Mayor-Lisa.
Thanks, Sonny. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Good evening, everybody. I'll hopefully not take up too much of your time. I'll just run through the infrastructure funding statement for the financial year of April 2022 to March 2023. Next slide, please. So just to give some background, for those of you who may not be familiar, the government legislation requires all local authorities to publish an annual infrastructure funding statement. So this provides a summary of all Section 106 agreements, income and expenditure across all service areas. The developer contributions that have been agreed, received, allocated or spent over the last financial period. And as Sonny mentioned, we've helped Council produce this report, which is the 4th one that we've done relating to the activity across the financial year of 2022 to 23. So there's quite an extensive data collection exercise to inform the report, and I'll take you through some of those in the next few slides. Next, please. So the Section 106 agreements, which you're probably familiar with, it's a planning obligation. It's a legal charge on land which aims to mitigate the impact of a development proposal. So in some way it negotiates to make unacceptable elements of development more acceptable through financial or in-kind contributions, and it's directly related and proportionate to the development. So there's key areas that tend to be sort of allocated in terms of the Section 106 agreements. Affordable housing, which can be a contribution or number of units on site. Transport facilities, highways, open space, play facilities, education, libraries, museums, economic development or skills funding, public art, and then monitoring, which accounts for the resourcing and monitoring that needs to be done in relation to the Section 106, including production of this report. So if you next slide, please. So the content of the infrastructure funding statement, it has involved sort of engagement across service areas and the finance team at Luton to inform the report. So it covers the Section 106 obligations and processes, sets some background in terms of what that is and how it's carried out. Section 106 agreements that are made, and that's basically ones that have been agreed in this reporting financial year but not yet received. So there may be a delay in terms of the triggers that are associated with that. The Section 106 contributions which are actually received, and that includes the financial and non-financial contributions that have been made and received by the council. And then there is also the Section 106 funds that have been allocated. So that's ones that have been allocated towards certain projects but not yet spent. And then finally, the funds spent throughout the financial year. And that's again in certain projects or service areas. Next slide. So to summarise some of the figures, this year, the latest balance on Section 106 agreements was over 4 million there. As you can see, 4 million, over 4,600,000. That was at the end of March 2023. And this is a cumulative figure. So it's funds that have been accrued from previous years, which has increased since the previous year of 2021 to 22, which was over 3.5 million. In the year, a total of 423,748 77 pence have been received in 2022-23, and in terms of expenditure, just over 306,000. So is the first point there about the funds held, it's important to say that those are ones that may be held until a certain trigger comes into play or certain expenditure is needed for certain infrastructure projects, and that hasn't come forward yet. And also it's a cumulative amount, which you'll see in the next slides. So the agreement signed in 2022-23, this is just a breakdown here. And again, it's reflected in the report, but this is just to basically identify various Section 106 agreements that were made and signed throughout the year and within each of the service areas. And you can see education and highways have attributed to the largest proportion there, each with 2 and sort of almost 2.5 million. So during the 2022-23 financial year, also a number of non-monetary contributions were agreed. And this included the delivery of affordable housing units and employment skills, procurement and training strategies. The affordable housing sort of on-site was a requirement of 5 residential properties, which was rented housings on Cheapside, or a car park at 37 to 41 Cheapside. And I think that's just sort of, sorry, I won't go through the various applications there, but 20% requirement on another application, and then 30% was on the Orchard Centres Way, Bedfordshire. So again, the breakdown of that is in the report, so you can get more details in terms of which applications that those sort of in-kind contributions were made. And the monetary value was over almost 6,700,000. Next slide, please. So just to see sort of the income and expenditure since 2017, when this report was first produced, you can see sort of the fluctuation there. The blue is the income and the orange represents the expenditure year on year. And generally, the income is sitting a little bit higher. So Section 106 balance, as I mentioned sort of at the outset, this year, or the last reporting year, was just over 4.5 million. So as I mentioned, that's a cumulative amount that has been sort of from all of these figures along the year that hasn't been spent, that has given us the higher value total. And for this reporting year, 22 to 23, there were just over 423,000 funds received in year, and just over 300,000 have been spent. And again, you can get sort of the breakdown of those incomes and expenditure in the report. The expenditure was mostly highways, with some monitoring, and other contribution was again on airport highway improvements. And the next slide, please. In terms of funds received in year, that was accounted for by 6 applications, and again they are listed in the report, which attributed to almost 270,000 in Section 106 contributions. In addition to that, 154,000 was received in monitoring fees, which were attached to 13 applications. So this basically, again, sort of going through the records, 109,000 of that figure we were able to sort of link back to applications, and there's 45,000 that's unreported in terms of the records that finance have. So there is a requirement to publish this information for transparency and for really, members of the public or developers or whoever it might be, just to have access, I guess, to see how the funds collected are actually being spent by the council. So in total, in terms of what was collected in monitoring and other contributions to highways, open space, education, libraries, museum, waste and car club, that came to over 423,000. So I think we can go on to the final slide, please, which is just really a summary of the figures I've gone through for this year, or for the last reporting year, which was 22 to 23, and you can see again sort of the various figures reported over the last 4 years, and that again just shows you the breakdown kind of funds agreed, received and spent throughout each of the financial reporting years. So it was a quick run through, and obviously there is more detail in the report and breakdown of all those figures, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Dr. Francis?
Yeah, just for clarification, the affordable housing is not actual income, but the value of that affordable housing. Is that right?
For some of them will be contributions, but yes, there also will be accounted for the affordable housing on site as well.
Pamela?
Yeah. In terms of infrastructure, you have identified various sector. How who evaluate the list of the services like education, libraries? This council will decide which section will receive the section 106 money, or is it how council evaluate which sector should get money from S106? Because I'm referring, is there any chance we can add things like community hub for NHS service provider, like GP service, etc. Because in Luton we have a big crisis of GPs, and I also sit in other health board, and they mention they have lack of places to expand their GP services. So, is any opportunity we can add an NHS service structure, service infrastructure to welcome GPs or dentists? Thank you.
Perhaps Sonny maybe can sort of support what I'm saying, but generally the contributions will be reliant on, as you mentioned, sort of the infrastructure delivery plan and what's set out in that. So again, depending on sort of how recent that is and how often it's updated. But certainly projects that are set out, that's kind of, I guess, the best way of ensuring that they can, developments can contribute then to the required infrastructure set out in, and also obviously sort of the local plan progression as well. But there is opportunity to do that, I guess, and I know that obviously as well you're working with the service providers, but I think the infrastructure delivery plan is probably the best place to sort of have that captured, and so again it's sort of publicly available for as evidence to support whenever the requests are made through the application process.
Thanks, Elisa. I'll also supplement her answer. In terms of Section 106s, we are legally required to only ask for contributions if they're necessary, reasonable and relevant to the development. And it needs to be underpinned by adopted policy. So our adopted policy document is the supplementary planning document on Section 106 contributions. It dates back to 2007, and it has the formula by which we as the council can ask for contributions from developments. Very rarely does a scheme have sufficient viability in it to satisfy all the requirements in that SPD. I think earlier on today, Union Street is the item that we considered is a rare application where they meet all the requirements and they're able to satisfy what's in the SPD. More often, schemes that come to committee have viability challenges, and they're not able to meet or satisfy all the requirements in the SPD. Then it comes down to what can they afford, and usually developers quite crudely say, this is all we can afford, you decide how you want to spend it. The council usually identifies the most urgent need, which is affordable housing and education. members at committee can decide how to apportion that contribution. And at the moment, we recognise that the real need is affordable housing, so that gets a lion's share of what developers can contribute. Hopefully that answers your question.
I'd just like to add to that as well. I mean, nothing wrong in principle of asking a developer to make a contribution to a doctor's surgery or medical centre. We had a case in Farley where we granted planning permission for a medical centre about 3 or 4 years ago. It could be longer, but the CQC have refused to fund it. So that's where we are at the moment. It's pointless asking developers for contributions if they're not going to be of any use to us. We have in the past asked developers, I think it was the Hayward Tyler site, if they could include in their development a doctor's surgery or a medical centre, and they said they would. But that was how long ago? 4 years. The development never hasn't gone ahead. But we can only ask. We can only ask.
Question. In terms of you mentioned about economic development, is there anything you can specify what type of economic development for the money goes to section 10? The money we receive from section 106. What type of economic development? If you can specify, it will be helpful. Yeah.
Well, in the case, as we've kind of outlined this year, it has been in relation to sort of employment skills, procurement and training strategy. So that will also help to recruit and train local people in construction and operation jobs, as well as procuring local goods and services, sort of saved under, so very basically, again, various applications will contribute towards different training programs, which will in turn benefit the economy and the economic development in it locally as well, bringing people into jobs. So there's sort of a number of schemes associated with that. I think there's quite a number of applications have contributed to that, which are detailed again in the report.
Questions? Okay then. Thank you for the report, and to our consultant as well. It's an annual report that we get, so hopefully there'll be.
Just to make clear that members need to agree to publish the report on our website. So that's the purpose of bringing it.
We note the report and publish on our website. Okay, agreed. Right then. Okay, and that's it tonight. See you next month, because the meeting has been cancelled because of the general election, because you tend to make controversial points and the chief executive doesn't like it. So we'll see you in July.